So I'm part of a team that was formed 4 years ago at Google. Inside Android, historically, when we first came out with Android, we were very focused on the consumer. And only recently have we formed, as I say, 4 years ago, we formed a team specifically for the enterprise, specifically for management features in the enterprise. And we came out with a series of new features starting with the Lollipop release. And what I'm going to talk about is what's happening in Android, what's happened since Android 5, and what you can take advantage of with these management and distribution features. Android by itself is certainly very powerful, and we've seen the growth of Android devices at an incredible clip. We just passed this earlier this year 2 billion active Android devices in the world. Android is the first OS in the world to reach 2 billion active devices. Not even Windows is at 2 billion at this point. Coupled with the world's largest application distribution platform in the world. Play reaches more devices than any other application distribution platform. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the features that you may not realize exist in Play for private application distribution for within your domain, so that you can distribute applications just for your devices, just for your employees or your partners. One of the most important things that we did when we formed this team inside the Android development organization is that we recognize that not every worker is a knowledge worker. Not every worker needs to take a general purpose device and get their email and productivity tools. Those devices are certainly very common. You know, we've certainly seen at the management level of every company that's out there, we've seen the growth of that part of enterprise, but that's not where it ends. In fact, what we see is that there are a lot of uses of Android that involve fundamental business transformation, that involve getting Android devices out that are special purpose, that are shared devices, that may only be attached to a single person for a shift or for a certain shorter time period. And we want to make sure that Android works just as well in these use cases as it does for knowledge workers, where you have a device that's yours, it's assigned to one person semi-permanently. And when you look at the capabilities for business transformation that exist, when you look at all these use cases, it's phenomenal. So let me talk a little bit about what our vision is, so you understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what you can expect from Google going forward. So first of all, security has never been more important. And in fact, we'll be talking a little bit later, Pietro and I, about security specifically. I won't spend a lot of time on that right now, but I think what we've discovered is that most customers are not aware of just how much is happening in Android around security, how much additional security you get with GMS certified Android. And we'll talk about some of those features. But just that it's there, it works, and you don't need to think about it. Making it easy to manage. We've provided a very broad set of APIs to enterprise mobility management partners. So if you're using an EMM, say a SODI or an AirWatch, or Fancy Phone here in Eastern Europe is fairly common. Each of these has integrated the APIs that we've delivered in these versions of Android from Android 5 on. We've made it open and flexible so that there's many different ways of managing devices. We've also built Android so that it works for the cloud mobile world that we live in, right? We understand that many organizations are still dealing with centralized computing, mainframes, or client-server, PC architectures. But at the end of the day, you get the biggest benefit from going cloud mobile in your organization. And we've built Android to take full advantage of SaaS services and the benefits of mobility. Freedom to choose. This is the best part about Android, is you've got a choice. You can buy a ruggedized device that has an integrated scanner. You can buy a very inexpensive device that is useful maybe just for putting outside a conference room on a wall. Having that variety and a consistency in how you manage that is part of our vision. So let me talk a little bit about why we're working with Zebra. We recognize that in this enterprise ruggedized space, Zebra is the leader, and they've bet the company on taking Google certified devices that they've built and making that the center of their strategy. And they're taking advantage of so much of these new technologies. They're an early adopter. They've embraced the entire set of solutions, and we're working very closely together to ensure that that experience meets the needs of the enterprise community. Why is this important? This, to me, is the single greatest growth opportunity in enterprise, right? Knowledge worker use cases, they're growing consistently, but they're on a slow growth curve. Ruggedized and single purpose and purpose-built devices, shared devices, these are growing at a much faster rate. We see this as a much bigger opportunity in the long run. So many different places where those can get used inside the enterprise. So we're working with Zebra in many ways. We're working to support key accounts. I spend quite a bit of time here in Europe, working with partners, working with customers, speaking at events, presenting at certainly at the App Forum and these Dev Kitchen events, helping to make sure that the information that you need and that your integration partners need to be successful on Android is out there. We have a tremendous amount of resources that are on the web as well. And you know, I can tell you there is such a bright future here. There are so many powerful new capabilities. And I hope that you have the opportunity to take a look and learn what's out there and take advantage of it. So I'm going to have to update this slide now that Oreo has been released. But Lollipop was the very first version of Android, Android 5, that included these new management features. And I'm going to be describing them in the next few slides. The short version is a profile owner for managing a bring your own device type scenario, and device owner for managing the whole device. In most cases, you're talking about device owner with Zebra. Starting in later in the year that we released Lollipop, we made these management features mandatory. So there are some devices out in the wild that don't support these features in Lollipop. Starting with Marshmallow, this became mandatory. So if you have a Marshmallow device, you're going to be able to use these management features, particularly device owner. We added an additional set of features for what we call corporate-owned single use. So this enables lock task mode so that you can lock a particular application to the screen. This can make sense in kiosk-type use cases, in certain shared device use cases. We also increased the speed of provisioning. We've added in Nougat QR code provisioning, and in Oreo we've added capabilities for what we call zero-touch provisioning that will allow for devices to be provisioned automatically when you purchase those devices from a reseller that is authorized by the device manufacturer or directly from the device manufacturer that supports these features. So in general, what you're able to do now is customize and manage the experience on your Android device. So there are two different kinds of management that we've added. There's one scenario that is specifically for bring your own device and scenarios where you need to split the usage of the device between personal and work. And that's called the work profile. I'll show you what that looks like. In general, you're not going to be using that with Zebra devices. There's work managed device, and that is what you'll typically use for a device that's completely corporate owned, that may be shared amongst multiple people or given to a single person. That gives you complete control over the entire device. It's so much more powerful than device admin that you may be familiar with. That gives you a very limited amount of functionality, device admin does, whereas device owner gives you complete control. It's a power tool that lets you manage so much more on the device. So this is a picture of work profile. Again, this is for more of a BYOD scenario. This allows you to, you can think of it as logging into a separate second user, except that you haven't had to log out of the primary user, the personal user. And you'll see these badges with the orange briefcase. Those badges tell you that that app is managed by your enterprise, your work. And you can completely separate the work use of the device from the personal use of the device. It lets you, if you're on the IT side, it lets you manage only the work applications and data. You've got freedom and privacy as an employee on the personal use of that device. And if the enterprise wants to wipe the device, they're only wiping the work applications and data. So there's a complete separation and isolation of work and personal. One of the best features, and this is one that came in with Nougat, is that you can actually, Friday afternoon when you're leaving work, you can turn off work mode. All your work applications are grayed out. The notifications stop. You don't get any work notifications. You don't get anything that bothers you all weekend until you turn work mode back on again on Monday, and then everything reappears. Typically, if you're using a Zebra device, you're going to be using device owner or creating a work managed device. So these are equivalent terms, device owner, work managed device. You'll be using an enterprise mobility management solution, again, SODI or AirWatch. That solution becomes the device owner, can set policies on the device, across the whole device, control exactly which applications are deployed. In fact, I'll talk a little bit about this, but with device owner coupled with a managed Play Store, you can completely control the application distribution. You can control which apps appear, even the preloaded apps. You can control exactly how the device, when you open the Play Store, what shows up, what applications are available. And you've got several additional features, such as lock task mode here, that allow you to completely eliminate the notification bar if you need to, completely lock the application or set of applications to the screen. And what this does is it provides a set of standardized controls across all Android devices that include, effectively you can think of this as Marshmallow and above. They're all using the same basic set of APIs for management. So you're able to control permissions. As an administrator, you're able to temporarily suspend applications. You're able to control the application distribution process. You're able to get access to special logging and monitoring APIs that let you see more information about what's happening on the device. You can manage the VPN and Wi-Fi settings through this interface. And end users, when they go to those parts of settings, if you allow them to go to settings, they'll see that certain policies, certain settings have been set by you, and they can't be changed. One of the coolest things about the Nougat release for us was the introduction of QR code setup. You tap 6 times on the setup wizard when you get a new device. A scanner comes up, you can scan the QR code and set up your enterprise mobility management system, set up the device owner. Everything's taken care of in terms of provisioning and enrollment, starting with the QR code. You can also do this with NFC, even in the Marshmallow release, and earlier if you have the a version of Lollipop that includes these features. So Managed Google Play is an integral part of this solution. This lets you approve apps individually. It lets you push apps onto the device. It lets you allow apps to be approved that are optional apps, that if you want to allow employees to provision applications that are optional applications, they can search for and see those, or you can control the storefront that lets them see exactly what applications are available to them. You can put them in categories. You have complete control over that experience. We also make use of special accounts, and so instead of having to create a Google account for each device or have shared accounts that are on every device so that you can get access to the Play Store, these accounts are created automatically by your enterprise mobility management software. These accounts are used to manage the device. They don't have a password. They don't work with other Google services. So this allows you to completely manage what's going on the device, manage the application distribution, and the end user doesn't need to see or know or interact with that account. This is something that we came out with a couple years ago. Or if you are using Google services and say G Suite or other Google capabilities, you can also manage the Google accounts directly as well. So instead of having to have a consumer account, you can have managed Google accounts that employees would also use for other services. So there's 2 different options depending on what makes the most sense. We find that most customers that are using Zebra devices are using these managed Play accounts. They're very easy to set up. SOTI supports them. AirWatch supports them. Many other EMMs have integrated this capability. Even if you have an EMM right now, if you don't want to go through the trouble of configuring and setting up your EMM just to play around with Profile Owner or Device Owner, I'd encourage you to stop here at the Android Management Experience. It's a really simple tool. You can think of it as a very basic EMM. It's designed to demo what these features are and give you an opportunity to experience what management of these 2 new modes is like at enterprisegoogle.com/android/experience. You just need to sign in with a regular consumer Google account, and it'll take you through the process. And then it'll show you exactly how easy it is to set up and configure. So let me talk a bit about Google Mobile Services. Google certified devices include not only some of the most popular products in the world with, there are 7 products involved here that have over 1 billion users each. And you may not use all of these. I think among Zebra's customers, the maps and geolocation features are probably the most popular. But there's also some security features. And many people don't know that Gmail, the Gmail client also supports Exchange. The one that I see the most interest in is the geo set of features. And whether you're using APIs in your own private application where you're making use of these location APIs and capabilities and you're embedding that within your solution, or you're directly using Google Maps for various geo and navigation purposes, it's an extremely powerful capability, and you effectively get that for free. There are also some higher tier paid services that certainly the geo team at Google can talk to you about if you're interested, but the basic capabilities are all built in. We recently announced branding called Google Play Protect. This is something that we've been doing for a few years that you may not be aware of. Every Android device that has Google Play, basically every Google certified device, has this protection built in. We're protecting so many devices today, not quite 2 billion, but we're getting most of the Android population out there. There's 1 billion device scans happening every day. We're looking at the apps on the device, looking for applications that are potentially harmful. We've got 20,000 processors that are dedicated to nothing but scanning and validating the applications that are on Android devices. It's an incredible scale. We're using machine learning techniques to be able to quickly identify and search out those patterns that will allow us to find and remove harmful applications. And within the Play distribution process, we have a very sophisticated capability. In fact, this capability happens even for applications that aren't distributed through Play. If we see an application that's on a device that has more than 10 installations, basically we don't want to catch every developer version of an application that's still under development. But what we want to find is every application that is potentially harmful. So we'll get those from various sources. We'll analyze those. We'll provide a score there. And if we've got any concerns about it because of the score, that gets human review. And then we take all this analysis as well as third-party reports and act accordingly. You'll notice now, if you've got an Android device today, if you go into My Apps, you'll see there's a little box for Google Play Protect. You can ask to scan again on that device. You'll see that there's no problems there. If there was a problem, you would get notified. And you can take advantage of these features on every GMS device as long as you haven't opted out of that protection. We've also made some changes to the way that unknown sources work. Starting in Android Oreo, you're able to turn off or actually allow unknown sources on a per install source basis. We're doing some additional features with verified boot that is further hardening that process. We're supporting key ejection on for the encrypted file system. So we've starting with NuGA devices that are released first on NuGA have a new file-based encryption capability. So for instance, with the work profile, there's actually separate encryption keys for the personal side of the device versus the work apps and data. In addition, this key ejection mechanism allows for the session to be timed out. In other words, if the user, if your employee hasn't used that device in a certain amount of time, that key ejection can protect the device, make sure that it's not open, and lock down the file system. The lock screen, we're now not only supporting the trusted execution environment that's back in on the back end of that, but there's some new tamper-resistant hardware support that we're supporting in Android O. We've enhanced the permissions and added a few new ones to make sure that we're providing more security. We've also made some important enhancements to web view security and had an isolation take place in there in terms of the renderer being separate from the other aspects of the web view. We've got some great resources on this, and we'll be talking a little bit more about security in the next session.